The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
And it's me again. No, it's not Michael. Michael's not here this Friday. I might not be as great as Michael, but I'll try my very best. Alistair, thank you for joining me again this fine Friday.
You're very welcome. Looking forward to it. I'm afraid I'm only able to do an hour, otherwise divorce will loom. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, the forecast is supposed to be not very good for tomorrow. And having watched the Aberdeen Celtic game and what appeared to be a bit of a gale, I suspect it might have a big impact on the games. But we shall see how it pans out.
I mean, first of all, Alistair, we can only start one place, and that was the Aberdeen versus Celtic match on Wednesday night. What did you make of the match?
I thought, I alluded to the conditions there, and having lived in Aberdeen for quite a long time, quite a few years ago now, it must be said, it gets very cold and it can get quite blustery, but they were really hard, really hard. Not the worst I've seen, but it made a big impact. It had a big impact on the game, and I actually thought it was a pretty good game in the circumstances. I also thought that Aberdeen could have got a draw, possibly should have in the last minute, or the last couple of minutes when they had that chance. And first half in particular, I thought Aberdeen played well. You kind of had this feeling that Celtic would just somehow or other conjure up something, which is obviously what they did. The Aberdeen keeper made some good saves, though I think the goal that was disallowed, obviously it wasn't a goal because it was disallowed, but he didn't look particularly clever there. But no, I thought Aberdeen played well. I thought Celtic played well. In the circumstances, it was probably as good a game as you could expect because the conditions were shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to ask you, I know this, the title of this show is saying, do you think the title race is officially over now for you? Because I was looking at the standings, Alistair. Celtic are 7 points clear Aberdeen, plus Aberdeen's played one match extra as well.
Well, it's not officially over because obviously, Celtic could lose all the rest of their games, but at the same time, I'm looking at the window and there's a huge herd of pigs flying past. So I always think if the bookies are actually basically, paying out, that's a sign that it's over. I've said before in the show, I'm not a gambling person, or very, very rarely. I believe some bookies are paying out. That to my mind suggests that they know what the likely outcome is. I heard Brendan Rodgers saying there's still a championship, there's still a competition. He's got to say that. He can't turn up and say, look, guys, we're getting the cigars now, I'm going to send them out in the slippers next week, and maybe we'll probably still win, but I think most rational people will look at this and go, it would have to be the biggest. It'd be like winning 8-0 at half-time, getting beaten 9-8. It really would have to be like that. And I cannot see it happening because, you look at the games that are coming up this weekend, you look at all the games, and you can't really see Celtic losing them. And I saw that, I think it was Cal McGregor was saying that they don't go into games, they didn't go into the game on Wednesday thinking, well, if we've got a point, that's good. They were still expecting to score. And they're doing it more this season. I think they've done it even in the past when you've seen them maybe be a goal behind with 10 minutes to go and they come back and still win. So the answer, that was a very long-winded answer to your question to say yes.
And I think in terms of Aberdeen, people need to realise that that's Aberdeen's. Aberdeen's had a great start to this season, so I don't think we should undermine Aberdeen because of how good Celtic are.
No, I mean, what will be interesting, well, Aberdeen have obviously got a game that I've got a vested interest in this weekend, so Aberdeen will be looking to get it back on track. They've had a far, far better start than I think any of their fans would have thought because, let's be honest, Taylor was an unknown quantity. They had a pretty rubbish season last season, and actually, when you look at the way the games have gone and the games they've won, they're where, they're in the league on merit in second. Rangers are obviously picked up a wee bit, so you can see the Rangers fans thinking they're going to catch them up, but I think you can almost put the league into three sections now. I think you can look at Rangers, Aberdeen, and then Celtic above them, and it's a question of how quickly Celtic win the league. And then actually you might get a really good competition for who's going to be second, because the longer Aberdeen can keep on winning, or if they drop points and Rangers drop points, staying more or less eaksy peaksy, that'll be the major excitement come the end of the season.
Aye. But what I want to talk about Celtic as well, Alistair, is that squad strength. For me, the squad strength is a big reason why Celtic are doing so well this season.
Yeah, and it comes down to the fact they've got more money than everybody else. And I'm not saying that in, with a sort of degree of, green-eyed envy. Well, I am, but but that makes all the difference. If you've got that amount of money, then you can afford better players, and they've got a really good strength and depth. I think they will be. We'll see what they do in the transfer window, because for Scotland they don't need to do anything. I don't think. A lot will depend on what they want to do in Europe. I see Paul Dawson saying it's a must win for Aberdeen. It's also a must win for us, Paul, I'm afraid. So sorry to disagree. But no, Celtic are. As I said earlier, they're home and hosed in the league. The strength and depth of their squad means that they can rest players for games against, they won't call them the Diddy teams, but that's what they are in relative terms, and I'm including my team in that. They'll get tested in occasional games. I think Rangers will give them a bit of a test in the League Cup final, because Rangers will be so up for it, because they've absolutely got to. They can't afford to lose that game, I don't think, Rangers. And I can't see them winning it. Then again, I think, as I said in the show the other day, I never saw Man United beat Man City in the FA Cup final last year.
Yeah. And I think in terms of Aberdeen, Alistair, I think second place would be a great thing for Aberdeen this season.
Yeah, wait a minute. I'm old enough to remember, and also I lived in Aberdeen, as I said, for quite a long time, when they won the Cup Winners' Cup, and the 1980s. I remember going to watch a game at New Year at Tannadice between Aberdeen and Dundee United, when they were the two best teams in the country. And I think people forget just how good Aberdeen were then. I mean, they had a fabulous team. And yep. I don't think those days are going to come back, because, again, it comes back to money. However, I think you're right. If being second in this league is an achievement, because normally you expect it to be Rangers or Celtic. So if you can actually finish third, the league almost starts after Celtic and Rangers for most of the rest of the clubs. So if you're third, that means you've effectively won the league, the other league. If you're actually second, that's a significant achievement. Will it happen? I think Rangers have picked up a wee bit now. They obviously hammered Kilmarnock midweek. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. And I come back to that League Cup final. If they lose that, which on paper they will, how much of a blow will that be to the morale?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get on to the other matches during the week as well. After the other match, Dundee thrashed Motherwell as well. In terms of that match, I think there's starting to become a little bit of problems at Motherwell.
Well, our good friend Stephen Restside told me that he went up to the game, which is probably why he's feeling ill and not able to come on the show tonight. So, and he's drawn attention to the fact that McGinn's not been playing for them, and he's cited some statistics which actually are quite revealing, that when McGinn's not playing, they've lost far, far more games than when he is playing. Now, do I believe one player makes the team? Shouldn't. It might just be correlation and not causation. But if you're a football fan, you start looking at these things going, actually, hang on a second, we haven't got X, Y, and Z. That's why we're getting beat. We played Motherwell not that long ago, and we actually did pretty well, though they just about deserved to win. So I'm not sure if I would agree with you entirely, Reagan, if Motherwell, they're not falling apart. And I think although they got badly taken apart by Dundee, it's more to do with the fact that in this league, if you don't play well, the other team will beat you. And it's as simple as that. But they're all so tightly matched, so closely matched throughout most of the table, that it's almost who's actually the better team on the day. And if you have an off day, you can occasionally get gubbed.
Yeah. And it's great to be joined by my friend Graham. Thanks for joining us again, Graham. Good to see you, mate.
All right, gents, how are we?
Doing well, aye? Doing well.
Not too bad, though it's quite cold in the study, so I've got a little fire here which just keep me going.
So in terms of the Rangers match during the week, Alistair, obviously I think that's the first time this season I've really watched back a Rangers match, and they really played really well, and Rangers fans would be going home after that match and thinking that's what the Rangers fans want to see more often.
Well, I didn't watch it because I was watching the Celtic Aberdeen game, but I saw the score, and they took a bit of time, if I remember, to get going, and then once they got going, it was basically shooty in. And living down in Ayrshire and having lots of Kilmarnock friends, some Kilmarnock friends, one or two, they're not very pleased. The expression I would use is not one that we could use on this public service broadcaster, but they're not very happy, and you can see also on social media that McInnes is starting to get pilters. He's turning into Postecoglou at Spurs. So from from that point of view, I'm surprised. I thought Kilmarnock. Listen, every prediction I made at the start of the season, apart from Celtic winning, was just about rubbish. So I got Hearts wrong. I've got Kilmarnock wrong. So I still think they'll come good. I'd be quite pleased if they didn't, because that might keep us up. But they're obviously not in a good place just now.
Yeah. I mean, Graham, for you, mate, obviously Rangers, they've not started this season too well, but that 6-0 win would definitely do them fairly well.
Yeah, and I heard Chris Boyd on Wednesday after the Aberdeen game saying, "Watch out, Rangers are back." I don't know if he did it tongue in cheek, but I think they're a long way from being back. It's a good result. Of course it is. It's their best performance of the season, I would say. But yeah, I mean, Dessers managed to get a couple of goals. Cherny, who I think has actually been their best player so far this season, it's a big result for them. But they've got to build on that. That they weren't great against St Johnstone last week, but that's a big win for them. They needed that. They got a Ross County on Sunday, a game that could be difficult, but you don't know what Ross County team's going to turn up. They could make it tough. But there's no doubt that was a far better performance. It was far quicker, far sharper. Someone that's taken a lot of stick. James Tavernier getting a goal. So yeah, it's a good result for Rangers, but they have to build on that. But we said that so many times over the season, and they've not done it.
And I thought it was quite funny, Graham, that they've got the best showing in the season straight before the Rangers meet the board of directors at the AGM.
Yeah, I mean, that was always going to be difficult, I think, because a lot of Rangers fans, as we know, are not happy with the way things are going. And I don't think it would have mattered what happened in that result on Wednesday. It was going to be very difficult in the AGM. But there's no doubt that when you get a big win like that, it maybe does ease things a little bit. I still believe that Clermont and Rangers are under massive pressure. They've got far bigger games to come. They've got that League Cup final against Celtic next week, which I don't really think anyone expects them to win. So they do have big games coming up, and it always feels like Clermont is one game away from people saying, he has to go. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if they obviously won on Wednesday, but if they were then to drop points against Ross County, you're back at square one again. So they've got to go on a big run. They've got to play like that for the rest of the season, but I don't think they're going to. No,
and I think that's a great point you make. Well, I think it was just good for Rangers that Dessers got 2, Manny got 2. So I think it's just about getting the forward players scoring, Graham.
Absolutely. I mean, Cyril Dessers gets a lot of stick, and I think sometimes rightly so. But to get 2 goals on Wednesday should boost his confidence. Manu, I think, looked quite decent when he's played recently. So him getting a goal as well will boost his confidence. So they do have to get the forward players scoring. Like I said, Cherny, I think, has been their best player so far this season, the most creative player. He's managed to get a goal as well. So, scoring 6 goals at home is a very good result against what was a pretty disappointing Kilmarnock side. They've had a really poor season so far, but again, you don't know what to expect from them. But it's such a big result. But they've got to keep doing that now. You know, like I say, if they drop points to Ross County, and you're back to square one again. People are thinking, well, how can you beat Kilmarnock 6-0 then not take points off Ross County?
I think that's a big thing you talk about, and it's all about Rangers because they've got Spurs during the week, and then they've got this. So the Celtic games. How much? Well, I don't know. You can let us know, Rangers fans, in the comments. But I think for me, if I'm a Rangers, Alistair.
But I think if are you back, Reagan?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. you were turning into a Rangers fan at that point, you said.
Yeah, I was saying that I think the big thing for the Rangers fans is they've got Spurs on Thursday, but the most important thing for them would be that match at Hampden next Sunday.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. I mean, you imagine, let's say the tables were turned and it was Celtic who were in that position that Rangers are in, and Rangers were flying, or Hearts come to that. Do you actually go and play a weakened team against a Premier, an English Premier team who on their day can beat Man City 4-0 and risk getting absolutely gubbed before the most important match of the season so far against your deadliest rivals in a cup final? But you've actually held your good players back. But because you've been beaten, then you're actually, the morale's on the floor. It's an impossible circle of square, I think.
Obviously, it's also going to be interesting because Celtic play on Tuesday, so they get 2 extra days to rest as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got to take one game at a time, but that big game is coming thick and fast. Celtic are in really good form. I didn't manage to watch a lot of the Celtic Aberdeen game on Wednesday. From the highlights I did see, it was quite a close game. Celtic probably did deserve to sneak it. But it's such a massive, massive game that, Rangers will go into that game thinking, if we can just catch Celtic off the top of their game, I don't think it'll happen though. But yeah, I mean, maybe having the extra rest might help. But I don't really think anyone's going to expect Rangers to win that game next week. It would be a really big surprise if they did, given the two teams' form just now.
Yeah.
Talking of Rangers, I'll probably take over host now because I'm here. But talking of Rangers, I'm going to take the show down a different route, like I tend to do on the show. We do talk about VAR quite a lot, but before I came on earlier, about 40 minutes ago, the KMI had met. So the key match incident review panel had met to discuss incidents last week, and they have said that there were 4 decisions wrong last week. Only 4. So one of them did involve Rangers. Now, we didn't do the show last Sunday because I was at the game last week. But one of the incidents was, so the KMI have decided that there should have been a penalty for a handball from Jack Sanders in the Rangers game last week. Now, again, I hadn't really seen it at the time. I've just saw it just now. Alistair, I don't know what your thoughts were on that because I've just seen it back just now. And for me, I think they actually got that right because I don't really think Sanders could do much about that personally.
Well, I was at the game, and at the time, I don't think anybody actually knew what. Nobody really claimed for it. That's usually a sign, And if nobody's claiming for it and they're going and re-refereeing the game, then I think we're in trouble because usually players will claim for absolutely everything. They'll hammer the ball out of touch and then go nuts because the linesman's giving it the direction. At the time, I don't think anybody really knew what it was. There was a sort of shout, I think, from the Rangers fans. If people think this is a really duff decision, there's going to be a lot of growling in the crowd for quite some time afterwards. The referee's going to get booed off, it just didn't happen. Now, I've not seen it back, but this is the kind of thing which is destroying the game. People basically going back and looking at stuff where the game's come on. As it happens, Rangers won the game. We were good the first half. They were better in the second half. They deserved to win, but they weren't great. Partly because we were defending really well. And Sanders, I may say, is actually turning out to be a lot better than I thought he was going to be. But yeah, I just think, well, you know what my thoughts are. I would put it in the bin now. In fact, I would put the bin on fire and then put it in the bin and then close the lid and then actually put in a rocket and actually put it, in outer space. And then I'd send a nuclear missile after it just to make sure. That might be a bit draconian, but I suspect most fans wouldn't disagree.
Reagan, there were 3 other incidents last week. I was at one of them. So Hearts against Aberdeen, Jack Milne didn't get a sending off for the challenge on Benny Beringame, which I said was an absolute joke. The KMI have said that should have been a red card. And there were 2 incidents in the United St Mirren game last week. Again, looking at those, I don't know how they got those wrong. So the challenge from Jack Walton on Olasanya that was given a yellow card at the time should have been a sending off. And the sending off from Marcus Fraser that should not have been a sending off. They basically said that VAR should not have got involved. So we're looking at last week and 4 decisions wrong by VAR. I mean, I've said it so many times. The referee on the park, I can kind of understand. It's a fast-paced game. But the guy in the VAR room, how can you be getting these kind of decisions wrong? Especially the Jack Walton one and the Benny one last week. They were quite clearly, and we use the words clear and obvious, they were clear and obvious. How do you get those wrong?
Well, Graham, if you want me to be brutally honest, if you look down south, there was like a former referee did a podcast, and he basically said, I don't know if you remember the match, but it was during Spurs and Chelsea, and I think it was one of the, is it Cucurella?
Yeah.
So someone on the Spurs team pulled his hair, right? It should have been a straight red card. And the referee said he didn't want to tell the VAR because he didn't want to say anything bad to his friend. So I think that just shows you sometimes that I know that of course you don't want to do that to your friend, but there needs to be a bit of sense goes on here. Well, I think it's like you said with the one at Tynecastle last week. I mean, that was a red card all day long, Graham.
I mean, that's the thing, Alistair. We talk about clear and obvious, and we've had the guys on from the podcast before, the referees podcast. That's what it was brought in for challenges like the one on Benny Beringame, 4 challenges like the one on Jack on Olasanya last week. You cannot get those decisions wrong, but it feels like every week Willie Collum or somebody's coming saying, "Oh, we got this wrong." I'm sorry, but that's not good enough.
No, and I mean the Walton one, it was clear and obvious at the time it was a send off. never mind when it goes to VAR. I genuinely don't know what the answer is, apart from getting rid of it, which is not going to happen. Not unless every fan stops going to games for a couple of weeks, and then they would stop it because they'd have to. But that's not going to happen. So, what can you do? Well, for a start, you could go back to what Willie Collum said at the start of this season, which is that they wouldn't actually get, they look at the handball in a different way, which I think they are, to be fair. But that would cover the Sanders one. So again, why do they think they got that wrong? And they should not get involved at all if it's not clear and obvious. And to my mind, that's, if you look at it for 30 seconds and it's not clear and obvious, you're a referee, you're a top level referee, you're used to doing all these games and you've been assessed all the way through the chain, and you're trained to get these things right in an instant. And most of the time they do. They make fewer mistakes probably than the players. Okay, it's a slightly different kind of thing they're doing, but they're actually very, very good at what they do, despite what fans think, because to have the actual man management skills to cope with the grief they get is really quite an impressive feat. And it's much harder for them nowadays because they can't speak back to players in the way they used to be able to. They can't have a joke with the players. They can't swear at the players. But because of the way VAR's constituted, there's this tendency, and it's come out in all the surveys the SFA's done, referees actually know that VAR will they hope VAR will get them out of a sticky situation. But when it's as obvious as that assault, that's a man play by the United keeper, yeah, there's nothing you can say other than that that's wrong. Now, I know pre-VAR days, a couple of referees, Hugh Dallas would phone the St Johnstone manager at that time was Sandy Clark. After Sandy had accosted him in his dressing room after the game to say, by the way, Mr. Dallas, that was maybe not the best decision you've ever made. Again, he may have said it slightly differently, but he actually phoned and said, look, the next day and said, you're absolutely right, I've got it wrong. When Craig Ferguson gave the penalty for Celtic against Saints at McDermott Park when it hit the boy Watson on the backside, and Tommy Wright went nuts. And again, he got a phone call the next day saying, I couldn't sleep. The referee was mortified he'd got it wrong. So they are human from that point of view, but that was good. And I don't know whether that happens nowadays. That kind of sort of human, okay, I made a mess, I'm really sorry. And Tommy said that they actually had a laugh about it, and he said he couldn't sleep that night either because he was so annoyed with the referee. So I genuinely don't know where we go with this, because fans are getting more and more fed up, and it was bad last season. It seems to be creeping back in again, this inconsistency, more so than before. There's a lot of other problems going on in Scottish football just now, which I think we'll talk about before I head off at 6 about pyros and stuff. So it's difficult, and they're trying to sort of put out one fire or another one, sort of, starting burning in another part of the field. I feel for referees, as you know, but yeah, some of these decisions are just mince.
I'm glad Paul brought that up. Kyogo should have been booked for the challenge on Ross Doon the other night. Don't think it was deliberate, but it was extremely reckless. I've seen a lot of folk talking about that. Did you think that was our booking at the time, Regan?
I did, because Kyogo went. Of course, he's going for the ball, but he's reckless with what he's doing there, and he knows what he's doing. And I think it probably should have been, yeah. But I thought the referee handled the big match on Wednesday pretty well. He let the game flow. I did think at the end of the match, though, that Graham Shinnie should have been sent off, because he did about 6 or 7 tackles, Graham, and he got booked for one in the second half, and then he did about 3 or 4 other tackles that if he didn't get booked in the second half, then he should have been off. So I just didn't understand. I thought he should have been off the park.
But there are a couple of things we want to talk to Alice about before it goes at 6 o'clock. But before we do, on Monday night, I'm sure you all know this anyway, but last Monday, the Scottish Cup 4th round draw was made. So the ties are Brecon against Hearts, Broxburn against Ayr, Celtic against Kilmarnock, Cove Rangers against Forfar, Dumbarton against Airdrie, Dundee United, Dunfermline against Stenhousemuir, Elgin City v Aberdeen, Falkirk v Raith, Hamilton v Musselburgh, Hibs v Clydebank, Queen of the South against St Mirren, Queen's Park Montrose, Rangers v Fraserburgh, Ross County Livingston, and St Johnstone against Motherwell. Now, 5 of these games are on telly. The Brecon Hearts game is on Friday 17th, 7:45 kick-off BBC Scotland. The Celtic Kilmarnock game is on Premier Sports at 5:30 on the Saturday. There are 2 Sunday games, which will be Falkirk against Raith. That is on Premier Sports at 12 o'clock. Then there's also Rangers against Fraserburgh. That will be on BBC at 2:15. And I think there is another game as well. It is, the Dundee Derby is on the Monday, which is the 20th, and that's at 8. It will be, but I was going to actually get onto that. Apart from obviously the Dundee Derby, Regan, is there any other games that stand out for you?
Probably the Clydebank going to the road. I mean, Clydebank have got a great history in Scottish football, so it'll just be good to see them and see the way that David Gray side are playing at the moment. I mean, you would quite fancy Clydebank to go there and do okay.
Alistair, a home draw for St Johnstone, maybe not exactly the tie you wanted, but Motherwell at home, obviously a difficult game, but your thoughts on that? At least it's at home.
I was wanting Loch Elliot Miners welfare reserves, but Rangers got them as usual. So no, the home game makes a big difference. We've had quite a lot of games over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years against Motherwell at various stages in the Cup, and I can remember winning 2-0, I think, in the quarter-final at Fir Park. I can remember getting absolutely gubbed after the first 20 minutes at the semi-final at Hampden, which wasn't a good day because you've got all worked up for going, maybe get to a final and the game's over after about 10, 15, 20 minutes. We're 3-0 down. I said earlier on in the show tonight that it really depends on who turns up, who actually plays on the day, and I think that will be the case again. The fact we're at home, I think, will give us a slight advantage. we'll see what the team's forms are like going into it. We actually played pretty well against Rangers in the first half. We couldn't really cope in the second half, but I can see the improvements in the team. But we've still got a long, long way to go.
Paul says, Elgin against Aberdeen not on TV. Disappointed that it's not on TV. The match could probably sell out twice over. I'm kind of glad in a way the Hearts game's on telly, but it's got Brora Rangers vibes for me. Another Highland League team. And the way we're playing just now, I have the fear. There's also 2 ex-Hearts players in that, as Brad McCann and Kevin McCarthy, so that could be fun. And I also know that Brechin signed Killian Sheridan, the 35-year-old, a couple of days ago as well. So we know what's going to happen with that, don't we? He's one and only goal against Hearts.
If you don't beat Brechin and Graham, then you probably shouldn't be in the Scottish Trophy, because that's a perfect tie for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dreading it, but I'm looking forward to it as well. But one thing that there shouldn't be at this game, and what a segue with this is pyros. Because for anyone that's not, what a segue that is, that was class. I didn't even mean to do that. But anyway, you'll probably not have realised that today there has been some fines handed out for, I think it's Celtic, Motherwell and somebody else, for the pyros that have happened. Now, it's been a big subject for a long time on this show. Another show is the fact that pyros are getting into grounds. Alistair, it is a big subject. Pyros seem to get into grounds quite a lot. We know what happened in the semi-finals in the League Cup. There was massive delays for the pyros getting on the pitch. What's your thoughts on this? Because I know you've got quite a lot of thoughts on this.
I do have quite a lot of thoughts on this. I was, and this is a very scary thought for anybody watching this, but I was at, well, it wasn't Holyrood, it was actually St Andrew's House on Wednesday with my good friend Stuart Murphy, who's the chief executive of the SFSA, at the round table into what effectively is enhancing the future of Scottish football. That is a really scary thought for everybody watching this, that I might be involved in this. And I won't, maybe another show I can give you a bit more information on what happened there, because it's actually really quite important. And there's a lot of interesting things about the cost of upgrading all the grounds in Scotland, which is off the scale we can't afford, about drinking grounds, and again, the reaction from the Minister and the MSPs in relation to that. But pyros was the subject which took up most of all the subjects we talked about. That was the one which actually took up most time. And the Minister, Marie Todd, started by talking about how it's getting worse and worse and worse, and then everybody basically piled in. And of course, you've got Neil Doncaster and Ian Maxwell there, plus other their deputies and various other people who are obviously involved in this. And it was quite clear from what they were saying that the semi-finals were almost the last straw, which is kind of what I think we've seen today with these fines being handed out. They didn't talk about those fines being handed out, I suspect, because they were checking with my learned friends to make sure before all this stuff went through. And there was some talk from some people about, well, it's partly down to this or that, or it's, people from, poor areas and all that kind of stuff. However, the overall consensus was it's gone too far. Some very interesting comments from the SPFL about the situation in England, where in England, anybody who does anything, not just pyros, but anything particularly untoward, can be subject to a banning order, which I didn't realise doesn't apply in Scotland. So we can't actually say, right, you lit a pyro, sorry, that's you banned. A lot of discussion around the relative sizes of the stick and the carrot. A lot of discussion around how do you actually educate people. Off the record, people were saying you can't educate them. Very interestingly, again, a lot of conversation around, if you take the Green Brigade or the Union Bears or people like that, and there's a reference to the Hearts fans, by the way, as well, with the Rockets before the Celtic game. There's a feeling that there's quite a lot of those people you can talk to and they'll actually listen, but there's a hardcore who it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if they've been fined, they'll still go and do it. And the guys who run Scottish football are telling us that if you take the semi-final, the Celtic Aberdeen game, all these guys are getting really carefully searched because they identify them as ultras. So other people are taking these things in for them. A story was told about from women's football game about a youngsters match where a parent is lighting a pyro at the side of the pitch and was really upset when he was told you shouldn't be doing it. It does also appear that there's a slight, not a glitch, but the law has not been as well framed as it could be. So in Scotland, you've got to be using a pyro in a way which is potentially dangerous. So how do you decide what that is? In theory, you could say, I'm just holding up like, holding a pyro up like so that, it keeps the seagulls away or whatever. And you might potentially have a good lawyer get you off. So they're looking to try and tighten up the law around about that. But I do think we've seen people getting badly hurt. We've seen the Greek policeman getting hit by a flare and dying. That's an issue. One final thing, and then I will pass it over to you guys. There was a general consensus that an awful lot of the people who are doing this are, quote, well, I won't use the word they used, but they've had a lot to drink and they are coked up. And the politician said, no, that's not the case. The lady from Foundation of Hearts was there, and she said, oh, yes, it is. So that's another issue which comes around this. And it tied back into the thing about drinking grounds, which we also talked about, but that's maybe another conversation another time. But clearly, drink, drugs, pyros are not a good combination. Are we going to wait till somebody dies? It'll take some time. Are we going to just do it on education? General consensus is there's a hardcore who won't pay any attention. At that point, it's got to be stick. How big is the stick? Over to you guys.
I'll come back to the drinking thing in a minute because I want to touch on that because I heard something today that was a bit concerning. But Reagan, I was at the Hearts game last week against Aberdeen. My laddie was with me. He had a bag with him which had his jacket and a couple of sweets in it. So we had to stop for about a couple of minutes to search the bag and stuff. But all they really did was kind of checked inside it, checked there was no cans and stuff in it. They could have easily been a pyro like underneath his jacket. They never actually checked that. How do you police checking for pyros? Because it's very difficult to search everybody when they come onto a ground. Not everyone gets searched. So how do you police that? Because it's very difficult to do.
And also, how do you speak to the stewards as well to say, right, this is what we're looking for? Because every steward is just going there to work and earn money as well. They're not wanting to be involved in a situation. So I think there needs to be a precedent set where if these people are identified on the ground, I mean, the police can see them, see what happens at a match. All you need to do is take a stand and go, right, well, if Celtic, Rangers or Hearts do it again, then that person will be banned from attending the match because that's the only way it's going to be done. So Celtic and Rangers in Europe right now, their reputation's getting worse because of it. Brendan Rodgers was out about 2 or 3 months ago, Graham, one Friday talking about the fact if Celtic don't behave in Europe, then potentially no Celtic fans will be allowed into certain home or away matches. And that's a disappointing thing as well.
I mean, honestly, you look back at the semi-finals and especially at the Celtic game. Now, that was delayed for what, 10, 15 minutes, maybe longer. When you've got 50,000 fans going to the stadium, it's very difficult to search everybody. Like I said, I don't know how other teams work. I don't know how other security teams work. But certainly in Castle, you do get searches. You've got bags on you, but not everyone might have a bag on them. They could easily put something under the jacket. You wouldn't know. I don't know how you actually police all this. It's very difficult to do when you've got, for example, 50 or 1,000 folk going to Hampden. You can't search everybody.
Well, again, going back to what was talked about at the round table, that I can't remember what somebody talked about a European country where again there was I think it might be an Eastern European, I'm not too sure, it doesn't really matter, but you actually went through some kind of airport type device which basically flagged up if there was any pyros there. Now, if you've got 55,000 people there, that's going to take an awful long time. But there might be ways to do it like that. As I said, I just don't, you cannot search everybody. I've been searched going into McDermott for games where they've deemed there to be a risk. Ironically, the last time I was searched was the Dundee game, where the wee boy got really badly burnt and nearly lost an eye. Danny, who sits next to me, who's a bit older than me, he said he went up to the turnstile, which is the one we normally go through, saw it was busy, looked down, the other one was not so busy, went down, nobody searched them. You know, so he could have not that he was going to, he could have taken pyros in or anything. And let me put it like this: if you took a knife in, which is equally as illegal and isn't dangerous until you stab somebody with it, and you got lifted and huckled out and you got banned for the next X seasons, nobody would bat an eyelid because they see the potential danger. But it is because, I've said this before, it's young boys, men who are actually doing it to cock a stick at authority. It may be because they're drunk, it may be because they're coked up. That might be a way to get through games watching St Johnstone, I don't know. But it's really, really obvious the way they were talking that, and these are the guys who run Scottish football and the minister responsible for all this stuff. It's obviously a major concern. And I think they're all strapping on extra dry pampers for the League Cup final, because the last thing they want is a repeat of what we saw at the semi-finals. And if that happens, and bear in mind it's Celtic and Rangers, and there'll be people there who will certainly have had a drink beforehand and who really don't give a monkeys, then it'll rebound on the sponsors. Because the other thing that came across quite clearly, well, fairly clearly, was that from the SPFL point of view, I don't think the sponsors were all that happy about the delays, because that obviously knackers their schedules. So it's a really big subject just now.
Paul says, I was in the away end at Tynecastle last weekend and got in without being searched at all. You probably would see me, because I was at Tynecastle as well, right next to your fans. My laddie did not like that one little bit. But I mean, this is the thing, Reagan. I mean, like I said, you can't search everybody. I know that folk kind of like pyros. It brings a bit of colour to it. I mean, you look at the League Cup semi-final, it was quite colourful. But as Alistair said, you're getting folk hurt. If you've got kids in that ground and the pyro goes wrong, you are going to get somebody hurt. You know, it's not great. And it is a big subject. We talk about it a lot on Michael and stuff as well. But I just don't know. I don't know another way around it, because it will happen again.
I mean, Graham, I showed you and Alistair the picture that I was present at Hampden Park, and I'm sure Alistair can talk about it, but it was very, very difficult for me to see, and you could and you were breathing the smoke in. It's not just about it potentially going wrong; it's about breathing all that stuff in as well. It's very bad for you. So I think there needs to be a stand from all clubs to say, if people are found to bring these in, then they should be banned from the matches, because then people won't do it. They're doing it right now because nothing's been done.
The thing that I've got a bit of an issue with, and maybe it's wrong, but I see that the clubs like Celtic and that have been fined. But why are the clubs getting fined? It's the people that are coming in with the stuff, the pyros, that are the issue. I don't know how the clubs can be punished for that.
The actual football, Scottish football's sort of, I can't remember the exact words they use. I think it's on the BBC website about their sort of, it's not duty of care, but it's that kind of thing. Again, going back to the round table, Andy Smith, who's our chair, brought up the subject of strict liability. The football clubs do not want strict liability, because clearly it would just take somebody to infiltrate the Celtic or Rangers fans and, cause an issue. Now, okay, you might find out in due course. But it comes back to this question you've asked, how do you actually identify the people? The stewards are not getting paid enough. They don't want to put their necks on the line. A lot of games nowadays don't have police. It depends on the game. At the Rangers game last Sunday, we had the police on the horses, we had everything. If it's Motherwell, there might not be any police. It might just be stewards of one or two. So it's really hard for the police. The clubs have all got cameras in these grounds. So
I mean, it's personally for me, Alex, I think that these people should be identified, and of course there's not going to be a £5,000 fine when they do it Rangers and Celtic, but it should be right. Well, these people should get fined £300 every time they go in and they do that, because then they'll not do it.
Yeah, I mean, the other point I'd like to make is that everyone thinks of this in terms of burning people. Now, having done a lot of research on this for the SFSA research, which again showed the majority of fans don't want this, human skin burns at 40 degrees. That's not all that hot. The cool pyros are about 500 degrees, but it's the smoke. So if you suffer from asthma, you're in big trouble.
Exactly.
I spoke to a Rangers fan who was at the Motherwell game, and he said he saw, and he suffers from asthma, and he saw these guys putting balaclavas on. He thought, right, I'm out of here. I need to avoid this. There's a serious danger of somebody having an asthma attack and dying because of the smoke. On top of that, and if you're disabled and you can't get away in your asthma, you're in big trouble. Clubs are making a big thing now about sensory rooms and that kind of stuff. If you're autistic, you are scared of these kind of noises. You wouldn't want to go near the ground. And I've said on this show before, if you've got my 6-year-old grandson and he's put off sporting my team or any team, doesn't matter. Well, he'll get written out my will if he doesn't support St Johnstone. That's another story. So, but if he is put off watching football because some selfish person wants to actually have, the excitement of some smoke in it, yeah, it looks spectacular. But who are they to deprive a 6-year-old of a whole lifetime of watching football? That's just wrong. I cannot think of anybody who could think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Reagan. I mean, we want to see kids and stuff at football. And
I don't know if you watch a lot of YouTube. I'm sorry to interject there, but it's a lot of young people that are doing it as well. It's a lot of young people that are doing these piles. So who's teaching these young people to actually want to do it?
Well, that's a fair point, because again, the other thing that came out was that it's not just the big clubs. Okay, they're getting fined, but this is happening at every level of football. It's, I talked about the girl's parent, or mother doing it and not realizing, that it's not a good idea. So the evidence is that it's increasing. It's not as bad in England, but it is clearly a problem across the continent as well. It may be the banning orders. It might be as simple as that. But certainly the fines and the publicity that's out there today. I got a chief executive, Stuart, was on BBC at lunchtime. I'd got an email saying, could I go on at drive time? Then they worked out that Stuart was on, so of course they didn't want to have us both on, so it got canned. But I think Stuart's on again at the weekend. In fact, he might be on BBC TV tonight as well. So it's clearly an issue which is dominating the sort of sports pages and the broadcasts just now, and I'm sure it'll be talked about on the radio tomorrow. And I come back to this League Cup final, the security for that, you look at your question, Graham, how are they going to search all these people? Because if it's the case that at the semi-final, they searched as far as they could the ultras, but it's other people that are taking them in, that's really hard to stop.
But I think it goes back to what Paul Donaldson said as well, that not a lot of people are getting searched as well. I mean, Graham gets searched for these little boys. I mean, I get taking chocolate into the game, but these people are taking pyros that obviously that it's not very nice to be doing stuff like this. So there needs to be something done that the clubs can go, right, well, it's a £600 fine for whoever is caught doing this.
I think the other part of the problem, sorry to interrupt, is, I mean, again, it's also this thing about people smuggling them in. I know, because I'm obviously older than you guys. I remember it was a game at St Mirren, actually, right? And so at St Mirren, the away fans, you stand behind the goal. And for some reason, when we're there, the only turnstiles are open at the very far end. So you're walking towards it, and they've got the stewards there, and they're looking out for the ultras. And you can see these ultras getting patted down as you go in. I think, okay, so I've got a tatty wax jacket. I look like somebody who sports in Johnson, basically a farmer, right? Get out my bonnet, right? Put it on, and they look at you and go, "No problem, sir," and you go, because I look like somebody who's not going to cause any problems, and I'm not. But if I was minded to, I could have my pockets full of pyros and just hand them to the wee guys inside. So they need to sort that out,
And also as well, like, it's like, see the people that are dressed in balaclavas that have got these pyros. A lot of the stewards don't want to get involved with that either, because they don't want to. They don't want to get attacked. They don't want to get punched. They want to be able to go to the work and feel safe as well, because these people become very intimidating for these stewards, because these stewards are only there to try and make a living for the family. And I think it was very important what Graham was saying there as well, because if you look at YouTube, right, if you look at any of the junior clubs at junior level, I don't know if Pennycook are the same, Graham, but all of these clubs have got pyrotechnics, even at that level as well. Like if you go back to Clydebank, Auckland and Talbot, all these clubs have got their own, what do they call it? The ultras. They've got these sections in there. And I think all the youngsters enjoy it, but there needs to be some education. See the way that they go into schools and they talk about show racism, the red card. There probably needs to be a bit of education. Right, no, it's not acceptable. Even if it's Pennycook against Shots FC, there still shouldn't be piles there.
One of the things which was mentioned on Wednesday, which I actually think might have some impact, and they cited Celtic. And Callum McGregor have basically gone to the fans and said, don't do this. So I think if you get the players at the clubs involved and they go to the fans and say, look, stop doing it. You know, really, they've got more influence, to be honest, than the stewards and the police will ever have. You know, so if Callum McGregor or Tavernier or whoever or Cherney goes to the fans and says, look, you're hurting the club, they're getting fines. More at the point, and this was, again, another really interesting point that I think actually might be the minister who'd made. If you look at that semi-final, the Celtic game, you've got these real, and they are highly toned athletes. They're ready for the game, and they've got to stop. And there's the danger that one of them might get an injury because they'll get a muscle. Something will happen to their muscles because they've stopped the warm-up, they're standing around, they're cold. That's not good for athletes. So in actual fact, you're potentially harming your own team. And that's where the players have got a message to get across.
The other thing you mentioned there was a drinking thing. And I'm glad you touched on that because I was listening to our Hearts podcast earlier. And one of the guys on it was in Bruges for the Cercle Bruges Hearts game last week. And he talked about this because he basically said that fans were allowed to drink at the game. But obviously Hearts are not playing that well. There's a lot of frustration. He said there was a number of fights broke out at the game last week, and a lot of it was because of the drinking. So obviously for a while, because the game was, I think, a late kickoff, but he basically said that you were allowed to drink at the game. So there were folk bringing beer in. They were chucking it on the pitch. They were chucking it at the players. They were chucking it over each other. Again, people want to bring the drinking into Scottish football, and not just Scottish football, English football as well. But I don't think it will ever happen. You know, I like a drink. I would like to have a drink in the game. I'm quite sensible, though. Maybe other folk aren't. But I just don't think it will ever happen. And I kind of said this a couple of weeks ago as well before the Hearts-Celtic game. I thought having that game at 7:45 Saturday night when folk have been out drinking all day was a recipe for disaster. Now, thankfully, I don't think anything happened. But it is a big topic because I don't ever think you will ever see drinking allowed in Scottish football games, personally.
Well, again, that was another major topic, which, now bear in mind, this roundtable is going to carry on throughout next year. It's not something that's just met twice. But that was a major topic. Before I go into what they said there, the other thing which I mentioned earlier on is people being coked up. Now, there were one or two people saying, what, really? And as I said, the lady from Hearts who'd been in Bruges as well said, yeah, absolutely. And Andy Smith, our chair, said, yeah, it's a serious problem. The conversation around the drink was interesting because all the football authorities are for drink being allowed in grounds. And they appreciate that it goes back to, they said it's fans' behaviour, and it obviously goes back to the famous incident at Hampden and all that kind of stuff. I can remember when you could have drinking grounds. And okay, there was quite a lot of football violence in those days, which didn't particularly help. I've talked before about things like the Battle of Brockville, all that kind of stuff. Ian Maxwell made a very good point up to a point. And he said, this Friday, they've got Queen's Park playing at Hampden. The next day, they've got a rugby match. Queen's Park, you can't have a drink in the ground. The rugby match, you can. Why is that? Well, we know why it is, because the rugby crowd are not going to cause any problems. I suspect Queen's Park aren't going to cause problems either. Again, the point was made, you can go to the pub for hours before the game anyway. A lot of clubs have got pubs either next door. I mean, there's an actual bar in the stand at McDermott. It's outside. You know? And you can only get to if you're a Saints fan, but you can get in and you can have 5 pints and then just literally walk out the door, walk up the steps, and you're in the main stand. So fans are going to be drunk beforehand. And the argument was, well, what difference does 2 or 3 pints make? That's not the point. If it's Montrose against Brecon or something, It probably makes sense, but do you really want to do it for Celtic Rangers? And the answer came from the minister, who said, and these are more or less her exact words, this country's got a catastrophic relationship with alcohol just now. We've got so many problems. She didn't actually go on to say this, but she implied there is no way the politicians are going to sign this off, because A, of the problem we've already got with alcohol here, and B, because there's an election coming in a couple of years and they want to win it, and they know full well it will switch a lot of people off. And it's ridiculous that football is the only sport that this applies to, but there's a reason for that. And they're not going to change it. I think you're absolutely right, Graham. The politicians are not allowed, no matter how much football industry wants it, and they do, I can't see it happening.
Even at the Scottish TV Gold, hope you're well. Dave Deadpool McCabe said, I think it's a bad idea to bring alcohol back into Scottish football grounds. And the point that Alistair made there about rugby, I remember going to a Scotland-Wales rugby game a long time ago, and I'm not a massive rugby fan, but I went because my mate was going, and obviously had to have plastic tumblers, but you could have a beer and stand next to the other opposition fans, and it was actually quite a nice atmosphere. You could never do that at football. You could never, ever have a pint in the ground. And listen, you will get obviously sensible folk like ourselves on this show, like all the folk that watch. You will get sensible folk that will adhere to, they'll be decent folk, but you will get the odd few that will misbehave because they've got a few pints in them. And this is why I just don't think it will ever, ever happen. I think there was talk about a trial at a game, but I just don't see it ever happening again.
No, I don't think it will. I mean, I've been to tennis matches in Scotland and London, and I've been watching a lot of tennis for years, and I've been to the tennis game and many pints. So it's all about the atmosphere and the culture of the sport as well. I just wish football would kind of grow up, but it just always seems to go back to these problems all the time. So no, I totally agree with you.
I mean, I know that you're allowed to drink at cricket grounds, but that's not a surprise because cricket's boring. You need something to watch. You need something to do when you're watching that.
No.
Honestly, it's the most boring sport in the world. Honestly, I don't get it. Anywhere that you break for lunch and tea is not a sport. It's rounders with a different bat. Can't stand cricket. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that I don't think will ever happen. But, listen to the Hearts podcast, the guy that was on it, and talk about the fact that it was folk like chucking drinks at people and chucking out at the pitch and stuff. You don't like to hear that, and it doesn't put Hearts in a good light. It doesn't put Scottish football in a good light. And, as you mentioned there, Alistair, you could never, ever do that for a Celtic Rangers game. It would just cause absolute carnage.
Yeah, and if it did, the politicians who'd signed it off would be losing the next election quite substantially, because, well, they might anyway, because, let's be honest, all politicians are pretty rubbish. It's just not, the political will is not there for it to happen. The pyros is a more important thing for them just now anyway, because it's clearly getting worse. And I've been to games in England where you could drink, and I think you still can in England.
Yeah, you can, I think it's possible.
I've been at Hampden back in the day when literally the stairwells are just a moving sort of staircase of beer cans, and then when they started stopping it, I remember I was in Aberdeen at the time and went to Pittodrie. This is way back in the day. And the Polish must have had a brilliant Christmas party because they were filling bins with cans and bottles. I mean, it was just unbelievable the amount of drink that people were trying to take in the grounds. And of course, the other problem is that the containers for drink, quite often, are glass. You know what happens after that? One of these things lands on somebody's head and does them a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Obviously, they talk about paddles and stuff, and I think there'll be a lot of eyes on that League Cup final, Reagan, because we all know it's a big occasion, but there'll be a lot of eyes on this because of the whole stuff about the pyros.
I'm no just saying that it's Rangers and Celtic, but it is. Those guys have got a big following and they do it all the time, but I just hope they can behave, Graham, because all the eyes will be on that match. It'll be on TV, it'll be on radio, and I'm sure you'll be on it after it, talking about it as well. So, no, I'm just hoping that we can talk about the football on the pitch rather than some pyro stuff.
Gents, as you know, for reasons of domestic bliss, I don't want to get divorced. I'm going to have to head off in a minute or two, but before I go, I can cheer up the Aberdeen fans watching by saying that I really don't see us getting the result, but you never know. I think what I'm hoping is that Aberdeen are absolutely knackered. There's some injuries that they're not admitting to, and in fact, the whole squad has got bubonic plague. But other than that, I suspect, although we are playing better, Aberdeen will want to bounce back, and it'll be like that. It's like us playing Rangers last weekend. I would bite your hand off for a draw now. Absolutely bite your hand off. But will we get one? Well, I'm sure you guys probably agree with me. I don't think we will. We need to start winning games. I know it's Paul, I think it was Paul or maybe James had said, it's a must-win game for Aberdeen. It's a must-win game for Saints because Hibs picked up points. Hearts are not going to carry on being as rubbish as they've looked like. You're looking around for a scapegoat, as it were, or a sort of, that's the wrong word, but you're looking for somebody basically to be worse than you. Currently, Kilmarnock are looking favourite. Possibly Ross County if they get beat by Celtic. But if we're losing, it doesn't make any difference. So we'll see.
Well, as always, Alistair, thank you very much for coming on.
No, you're very welcome. Sorry, as I said, I've got to head off. But I will doubtless see you on, and we will discuss what the score was at Pittodrie at the weekend. So to the Aberdeen fans watching, I hope you enjoy the game. But I think you probably will. Right, well, folks.
Cheers,
okay, bye.
Bye.
And then there were two. So before we get to the games this weekend, we do have to kind of just quickly touch on a terrible result for the Scotland women this week. Reagan, we did go last week. Scotland looking to get to Euro 2025. They drew the first leg 0-0 last week at Easter Road, but sadly they lost the second leg to Finland by 2-0. 2 goals in the first 28 minutes made it an uphill battle for Scotland women, and sadly won't be going to the Euros. And there is a lot of pressure and a lot of talk about Pedro Losa. Massive disappointment, Reagan.
I think it was, Graham. Well, I think Scotland should have probably had a penalty as well. Don't know if you've seen it, Graham, but I feel like they should. But I think overall, I think it's a little bit harsh for the manager, because he's done well. He's got us to the playoff, but it's just, I don't know if it then the expectation in that, because I remember me and you were saying that Scotland are ahead of Finland in the rankings, but it's only by 2 or 3 places, I think.
Yeah.
So I think all things talked about, Graham, I think that probably it was a missed opportunity at Easter Road, even though I probably thought Finland were the better team on Friday night. So, because I think if you're playing European games, Graham, you really need to do well in your home matches as well.
No, absolutely. It was a big opportunity missed, and I know that there has been a lot of pressure under Pedro Losa, but I think overall he has done a good job. But anyway, let's move on to the games that are coming this weekend. And we'll start with the champions. We'll start at Celtic Park. Celtic taking on Hibs. Hibs with a very good result against Motherwell last week. I don't think a lot of folks saw that coming. Celtic, obviously, 5-0 win against Ross County last week. Followed that up by a 1-0 win against Aberdeen on Wednesday. Reagan, going into this game, obviously Celtic coming in very good form. Are you expecting a comfortable win for Celtic this weekend, or do you think Hibs will make it difficult?
No, I'm expecting Celtic to win pretty easy, Graham. I think David Gray should have done okay, but I think the way Celtic swept aside Ross County last week, 5 goals in the first half, I think if Celtic get a goal early and they get in their stride, which I expect them to, Graham, I think it could be a long afternoon for David Gray. But also, I don't think this should be a match that David Gray should be really judged upon as well, because Celtic are doing well in the Champions League and they're doing well in Scottish football as well. So I think that needs to be taken into account as well.
I mean, Celtic against Ross County last week. Celtic were brilliant last week. I mean, 5-0 up in the first half. I think a lot of folk thought that could be double figures, but I mean, they did have chances, Celtic, to get more, but they didn't quite take them. But I mean, they are on such great form. They had the European game against Bruges. They've had these 2 games during the week, back at home again tomorrow. And we've talked about it so many times before. And I've heard you mention it as well numerous times about the squad depth of Celtic. They can afford to make 4 or 5 changes and it doesn't affect them. You can play guys like Luke McKermott tomorrow. You can play Bernardo. You can put Ida in for Kyogo. And it doesn't weaken Celtic. And that is where every other team just doesn't have that strength and depth.
I agree, man, you're spot on, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers will probably do because he's got that squad that he can rally, that he can trust. Because if you look at last season, Celtic were struggling. Kyogo wasn't firing, but then Brendan Rodgers he played Kyogo for the full 90 minutes because he had O on the bench that he didn't trust. He had Palmer on the bench that he didn't really trust. But if you look at this season, you get so many options. So I think it's a good point you make. And in terms of Luke, I mean, Luke's been absolutely brilliant. He scored last week, and then he put a great ball in for Scales to score the first goal. So he's just a great impact, Graham. I didn't think, to be honest with you, Graham, I didn't think he would start as well as he has, but I'm so glad he has. And it shows you as well, Graham, that all of these Scottish clubs like Hearts, like Rangers and Celtic, they should be buying from Scottish clubs because sometimes we kind of go, oh well, it's too obvious to buy a Luke or a Lennon Miller, you know, or a John McGinn from years ago. But these are players that are absolutely brilliant players.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those players at Celtic get a lot of credit, and somebody I want to talk about is Rio Hatate. Now, against Hearts a couple of weeks ago, first half he didn't really have that much of an effect, but second half he took control of the game. You look at the game against Ross County last week, he was exceptional. And then he's won the game on Wednesday against Aberdeen. I mean, Rio Hatate on his day is such a quality footballer. He's maybe not been as good this season as he has maybe the last couple of seasons, but I think that form is definitely coming back.
I would even argue, Graham, I said on my ex, or if Mike was listening to my ex, that basically that I feel like Brendan Rodgers has took Rio in particular to a brand new level. Fair play to Ange Postecoglou. I know he's going through a hard time at the minute, so if he's listening, then he better do better. But I mean, in terms of Rio, I think he's just took him to a brand new level, and I think that's credit to Brendan Rodgers because I think he's very good tactically, and every time that you see Brendan Rodgers, he's always speaking to his players in the touchline, and that's something that you didn't really see likes of Neil Lennon or Ange Postecoglou really doing too much.
Dave says, guys, what do you think about the accumulation of yellow cards in international cups and then the player gets banned for one game?
I think it's of course that I think the rule is if you get 5 bookings, then you miss the next match. But I think sometimes the bookings sometimes can be very stupid. Like if you kick the ball out of play, Graham, I've seen that a lot in the Premier League as well. That if you kick the ball out of play, then actually missing the next match. And I think sometimes there needs to be a bit of sense brought over. You know what I mean? And there needs to be a bit of okay, right? Well, there needs to be a higher bar. But that's all about the player. But it's also about the referee not getting too involved as well.
I also saw something earlier on today as well, and I can't mind if this is getting trialled or not, whether it's England or what, but apparently there now going, I think there's going to be a rule that if a goalkeeper holds onto the ball too long, then a corner is going to get awarded.
I've never seen that, no.
I saw it earlier on before when I was at work. So this new rule that's going to come into play that if a goalkeeper holds onto the ball for too long, then the referee is going to award a corner to the other team. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but
that means that Celtic can't beat Barcelona again because they'll be holding that ball for about 3 minutes.
That means Arsenal just score every goal from a corner kick because that's all they think we're doing just now.
True.
Yeah, looking at Hibs, I mean, again, they were such an up and down season. They got a really good win last week. You're then hoping to build on that, and now they've got to go to Celtic Park. It's not the place you want to go. But do you think there has been signs under David Gray? I know we've had Mikey on before, but do you think there is signs that David Gray is starting to turn things? You know, I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be Jocelyn tomorrow because it's Celtic Park. But is there signs that you think he's managing to turn things around?
I think there's been signs, Graham, but also because of his status with the Hibs fans as well, he's 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 got the added pressure as well, and I just hope he gets rid of the discipline problem as well. We spoke about it last week about Ellie Johan. I know that Ellie Johan and Marvin Bartley have had a wee spat on X and on Instagram and that. Hopefully, they've two have resolved that as well. So I think overall, in terms of David Gray, I think he's doing okay. But do I think he's a level of a Hibs manager? Because don't forget, Graham, as much as you don't want to admit it, this is a club that wants to be trying to fighting for top six at minimum in like top four, even top three. You know what I mean? They want to be up there.
How big do you think the January window could be for David Gray? And how many players realistically do you think they need to bring in?
I think the January window could be big, but also I do think that if he does lose in the next few matches, then they need to try and get rid of him so they can bring someone else in, because there's no point saying to the next manager, well, we'll bring you in, but after a January window, you want to if you're going to sack him, then you either sack him or back him, because you don't want to bring in a manager on February game when you're 10 points behind at the bottom. You want to bring a manager in during January so we can see what players he's got, and he can also judge, right, whereabouts do I need to strengthen.
I think one place they do need to strengthen. I know they kept a clean sheet last week, but one place they need to strengthen, I've mentioned this to Mikey as well, their goalkeepers. Bursick is not good enough. They brought the laddie in, Smith, against Aberdeen, conceded 3 goals. I just don't think they've got a good enough goalkeeper.
No, they don't. They don't. He's definitely not one that you want to see hang around too often. I mean, they had is it Arthur Borges' nephew last year, game?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to him. Is he still in the books?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I've not checked.
David Marshall, they had that Marciano that was really good against Scotland for Israel for years, Graham, because it seemed like we played Israel everybody week. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of them, I think they just need somebody that can really stand in there and really be a presence, because you of course Hibs are not going to win titles, but you also need a class number one that can save you as well.
In terms of predictions, what are you predicting for this one? Celtic against Hibs?
I'll go Celtic 4, Hibs 0.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with as well. Let's go to the team that is sitting second in the league, Aberdeen against St Johnstone at Pittodrie. Aberdeen have kind of dropped off a little bit. I mean, against Celtic, they weren't that bad. I thought they played some decent stuff. But I guess the St Johnstone side that were defeated last week 1-0 by Rangers, but they have looked a lot better, as Alistair has said. This could be a potentially tricky game for Aberdeen, but I think with the quality they've got, I think they should get through this one.
Yeah, I think they should, and I think Aberdeen, it's been a bit blown out of proportion. You look at Aberdeen's season; they've only lost 1 match. If you'd have said to any Aberdeen supporter that you'd only lost 1 match in the space of like playing 20 odd matches, they would have said yes, please. But it's just because of how good Celtic have been, Graham.
I mean, it's difficult to know, and obviously the new manager's come in, he's done very well, he's hit the ground running. But do you think it has helped the fact that they haven't been playing European football?
Oh, definitely. I'll give you a great example. Look at Spurs, Graham. Spurs have only got 1 fit centre half, Dragoshin. And people are saying, "Oh, what is Ange Postecoglou doing wrong? Is he getting the sack?" He's only got 1 fit centre half. Look, last night he played Archie Gray and Ben Davis. Ben Davis is a left back, and Archie Gray plays as a midfielder.
I mean, I was obviously at the game last week. I didn't think it was a particularly great game. There was quite scrappy at times. But there is no doubt that Aberdeen have got something about them. You know, they do have quality. You know, Shedden Morris has looked very impressive. They're bringing on Duke. I mean, they could afford to put Graham Shinner on the bench. They do have really good players in that team. And you have to give massive credit to the job Jimmy Thiel's done. You know, there's a long way to go. I never thought they'd win the title. And I don't really think any Aberdeen fan would think that either. But the fact that they are still ahead of Rangers don't play till Sunday, they can stretch the lead over them. You have to give Thielen a massive, massive credit because he has definitely turned the Aberdeen team around.
Yeah, and I think for certain, Graham, Aberdeen will finish in the top three. You know, and if you'd asked anybody that at the start of the season, Paul Donaldson's in the comments there. I mean, for Aberdeen to have third tied up, and it's not even Christmas Day yet, it's brilliant for them. As much as it's no, as much as it's a sudden diamond of Scottish football in the minute that maybe Hearts and Hibs are not up to standard, and it's sad to see. I mean, Paul Donaldson and his Aberdeen fans must be enjoying it because obviously we'll get on to Hearts and we'll get on to Derek McIntyre's side as well. But I think all of these teams are too. They win one, they lose one, they win one, they lose one. But Aberdeen are managing to put 4 wins together, and that's the big difference, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, Paul says Dimitar Mitov been out injured as a huge loss. He's out for about 6 weeks. I never actually saw what happened last week. Obviously, Rolf Doohan came in. He did okay against Celtic. But we said months and months ago that Dimitar Mitov is easily one of the best keepers in this league. Him being out is a huge, huge blow.
Yeah, I think it is, Graham. And I think even though Doohan made a brilliant save from Adamida during the week, and then he made one from Engels as well, you still miss that presence of Mitov in the goal because, as Paul knows, if you go into all the matches, home and away, Dimitar Mitov he's got a big presence there, and I think that's one of the big reasons why Aberdeen have managed to be second in the table, because it's not all about like playing fancy football all the time. Sometimes you might be playing absolute rubbish, and Dimitar Mitov saves you, Graham.
It's not just him, though. I think if looking defensively, someone that I think deserves a lot of credit is Nicky Devlin. I mean, the fact he's been in the Scotland squad, he's had a couple of games. Again, last week, he made a brilliant block from George Grant when George Grant could have won the game. I mean, Nicky Devlin is having an incredible season.
Yes. And that's fair play to him because he's been to Stenhousemuir, he's been to Livingston, and they're not the most glamorous places. Sorry to anyone that's watching for Stenhousemuir or Livingston. I know Mikey might know like that opinion, you know, but I think he's stepped up to Aberdeen now. He's a big club. He's stepped up to Scotland, and he's no looked at a place, Graham.
In terms of St Johnstone, we have said before that they have definitely improved. We said the same thing to Alistair. You know, losing to Rangers last week, maybe slightly unfortunate, but there's definitely been improvement from St Johnstone. But as with everyone, and I'll get to Hearts shortly, they've got to start picking up 3 points soon.
Yeah, they do, and I don't think tomorrow is the day that they start picking it up, because I think Aberdeen will dominate possession. But I think in terms of St Johnstone, I watched them last week for the first time in a long time, and they do look better organised under Valakari, so fair play to him for that. But they didn't really kind of have any chances that you could really go, but they're going to trouble Rangers. So that's the big thing for me for St Johnstone. Where's the goals going to come from?
I mean, what they do have is pace up front. You know, they do have like Sidibe, they've got Kim Pioka. I've been impressed with Mackenzie Kirk. Said Talisa before. I think he's a really good player. They do have options there. But, I mean, they're going to a very difficult venue. Paul says, I think if Mitov was still playing, the Hearts goal probably wouldn't have happened. I would agree with that. I don't think doing coverage from the glory with that. But, I mean, if you're a St Johnstone fan, yes, you may be not winning enough games, but you must be happier with the performances because they have been far, far better.
Yeah, and I think that's all the St Johnstone fans want, Graham. They want to be competitive in every match. They want to be in the game. Of course, St Johnstone are not going to have 80% possession and have Ronaldo up front with Ibrahimovic and Salah, but they just want a bit of spirit there, and that's what they're getting under Valkyrie.
In terms of prediction, I think we're probably both going to have Aberdeen prediction for this one.
I'll go 3-0 to Aberdeen. Sorry, Alistair, I know you're on the show there for the first hour. I really do appreciate you, but I'm sorry.
I'm going to go 2-0 Aberdeen. I think they will win it, but I think St Johnstone make it difficult. Let's go another team that's finding things difficult. My own team, Hearts against Dundee. Hearts currently sitting bottom of the league. Dundee sitting 5th, but they had a very good result in midweek, beating Motherwell by 4-1. Didn't really see that one coming. It's really difficult because I thought Hearts were okay for spells last week against Aberdeen. And I think under Critchley, we have been a lot better, but we're not winning games. And I said it last week, that was a must-win game last week. I was happy with the draw because we had injuries. We had Stephen Kingsley going off. We had Frankie Kent going off. It was a makeshift back four. But we've got to start winning games because we can't keep continuing this position.
Yeah, because it's like I said last week, of course it's better than it was under Naismith for his whole spell, but how long do you go and say that the football's much better, we're playing with much more impetus? How long do you say that for?
I mean, there is definitely, a bit like St Johnstone, there is signs of improvement, but again, something I'll go back to that I've mentioned the last couple of weeks. When you've got a striker that's not scoring, it is very difficult. 31 goals for Shanklin last season, 20 the season before. He's got 1 this season. I thought he was quite poor against Aberdeen last week. But the issue that we've got, like I've said before, is it's difficult to drop him because you don't have other options in there. Now, I thought Musa was very good last week when he played, but I don't get the feeling that Shanklin's going to get dropped anytime soon because he's the only real option we've got.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Graham, but I think what needs to happen though, Graham, is he needs to get dropped from the penalties. Even though he's a captain, he's the top goal scorer. Like Critchley said, he said, when the Hearts fans were doing the chants, he said, well, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be in Bruges. That's true, but also he's lacking at the moment. And this is where he needs to take responsibility and go, I'm going to pass the ball to Blair Spittle or to Danda or to someone that's going to score because he's clearly suffering from a lot of issues at the moment.
I'm glad you mentioned Danda because I've been disappointed with him. I don't think he's been the player that I hoped he would be. He started the season well. I thought he started the season very well. Then Naismith took him out, didn't really play him. But when he's played recently, he's not been that creative spark that I hoped for. He played against Cercle Bruges and I thought he was awful. I'm still hoping that things can change. But overall, of the signings that we've made, he's been the one I've been frustrated with most.
I don't think he's covered himself in glory, Graham. He's not really one of these guys that I felt like he was going to run the show. I did because he came out and he spoke to Sky in the first game and he said we could really challenge Rangers and Celtic for the title. And see, when you say that right away, I'm thinking that this guy's got a bit of steel about him. He's got a bit of personality. You usually when you're at Hearts Aberdeen, you kind of keep your powder dry and you don't really say much. But he was kind of bullish, and you could say it was kind of backfired against him now, Graham. But I think at the time it was fair play to him. But I just think overall, Hearts, I don't know if they've maybe bought too many players that can do the same thing. If you look at Blair Spittle and Danda, I think they're probably too similar.
I mean, they have played in the same team together a couple of times this season. They look all right, but it's just, for some reason, Danda's just not really performed. We had an AGM this week, and Andrew McKinley said, obviously it's not been good enough, performance has not been good enough. He also said that he still believes that Hearts can finish top 6. I would love to think that might happen. We are only 9 points off Motherwell, who sits 6. But right now, the way we're playing just now, I'm not convinced that's going to happen.
Yeah, I totally share that. I think if it was me, I would probably say Dundee would probably finish top six because I think the way they're playing at the moment, they're playing really well and they seem to be have a really good vibe under Tony Docherty. So I think if I was a betting man of the two teams that are playing on Saturday, I would probably say Dundee.
The other thing that came out from one of the AGMs this week was as well the Tony Bloom stuff looks very, very close. So it looks like he will be having a minority shareholding and he will plough £10 million into the club. Again, Andrew McKinley was very bullish and said that he thinks that Hearts could be challenging the top two very soon. I would love to see it. Do you think it will ever happen, though?
Hopefully it does because it brings more entertainment to us and we will talk about it and we'll be there. Me and Graham and Michael will talk about it every week and it'll be good for Scottish football, Graham. But do I think overall? No, I don't. At the moment, I think what needs to happen with Hearts is it needs to be steady progress and then over, hopefully I'm still alive to see it in probably 20 or 30 years' time.
So do I, mate. I hope I'm alive to see it as well. But talking of progress, I mean, Dundee have been very impressive this season. Currently sitting fifth. Like I said, a very good win against Motherwell the other day. They've got players in form. Lyle Cameron, Simon Murray, Jordan McGee. Dundee are going to make this very difficult tomorrow. And I think, Tony Docherty, we talk about a lot on this show. I think he goes under the radar quite a lot because he does such a brilliant job.
Yeah, he's been really good for Dundee. And I think when you've had that experience with Derek for like 10 plus years, there's going to be some sort of coach in there. So because I don't think Derek would have him there for the long term if he wasn't. So I think now he's just shown he's a really good manager and he's really shown everybody that if a job comes up, then he would be a prime candidate.
I mean, obviously, there was a lot of talk about Luke McCowan when he went to Celtic. Would Dundee be the same side? Of course, they were never going to be that way. But the fact they're sitting fifth, quite comfortably as well, it shows that they maybe have kind of, they have learned how to play without him now.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a big striker up top, Simon Murray, who's played in Scottish football for many years, done well at Queen's Park, done well at Hibs. So they've got a lot of good players in there, Graham, and I just think it's all about Tony Docherty trying to get that potential more and more often.
Do you think Lyle Cameron might be the next one to leave? Because again, he's been in really good form this season.
Definitely. I think even the Rangers, if they've got the money, I think that's who he supports. So I think if you're looking at, because I said this to you before, I think that's what Scottish football is missing. Of course, like, I want these players but I want them to still be in Scottish football, Graham. I want Scottish clubs to do more transactions with each other.
It's funny because, I'm looking at the league table here, Reagan, and you're looking at the two Dundee clubs. Dundee United are fourth, Dundee are fifth, and then you've got Hibs and Hearts, the bottom two. I think a lot of folk might have thought that would be the way around. I mean, it's crazy how different this league is this season.
Yes. And I think that's just a credit to what we've got with Scottish football. It's like Alistair said, we might not have the best product, but we've got so many interesting things that we can talk about each week.
So in terms of prediction, Hearts Dundee, I mean, I'm gonna try and be optimistic. I'm gonna go Hearts 2, Dundee 1.
Yeah, that was my scoreline as well. 2-1 to Hearts. I'll go for James Wilson, Simon Murray, and the winner. I'm going to say that is it Musa or Nusa? I'm going to say him.
I'm hoping that maybe Lauren Shankland might score and kickstart his season, but you never know. Talking about the team that is sitting fourth, Dundee United take on Kilmarnock. Now, this is a Kilmarnock side that has not won in 5 games, are sitting third bottom on 13 points. Dundee United, I mean, what a season they're having, Reagan. Sitting, again, fourth in the league. Beat St Mirren last week, although there were some controversial decisions in there. Dundee United, what a season Jim Goodwin's having.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to me, Jim. He's done great. He's really turned things around after his Aberdeen debacle. And, I just think genuinely the job was too big for him. He did well. Maybe I think Jim Goodwin's the equivalent of Sam Allardyce in England. You know, Jim Goodwin's good when he comes in, he's looking for a firefight, you know, and that's what the Dundee United was at the time. They were struggling and they needed somebody to pick them up, and that's what he's done. So I think fair play to Jim. You know, I know people slagging for the style of football and that as well, Graham, but he can only deal with what the players he's got there. He done a very good job at Alloa, very good job with St Mirren, not so good at Aberdeen. But I think that was just because of the pressure, and also because that was probably a step too far for him.
I've said it before that certain managers suit certain clubs. I think Jim Goodwin and United, it's just a really good fit. They both seem to be comfortable with each other. And all you've got to do is look at the league table. You know, again, I've said it previously that when teams come up from the Championship, maybe their kind of first aim is to stay in the league. When United are more than going to do that. They've had a really good season. They've had some really good results. You know, last week against, like I said, St Mirren, it was a bit of a VAR-induced game, but you can't, you know, you look at a guy like Sam Darley, for example. Nobody knew who he was before, but he's up there as one of the top scorers in the league. So it just goes to show that Jim Goodwin knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does, and I think it just shows you that you need to give guys a bit of time as well, because a lot of Dundee United fans did this season where they probably thought, right, well, it was probably going to be scrapping for our lives with St Johnstone to stay in the league, but they've over-exceeded their expectations, and fair play to them.
I mean, I've looked at it a few times, and they do try and play good football, but what they do have, they're very good defensively. You know, they've got a guy like Ross Graham. They've got a really decent goalkeeper. They've got Will Ferry as well, who's really good. You know, they do have players that work really hard, and that shows in a lot of their games.
Aye, I mean, they've been great so far. I mean, I don't think they can really expect much more than they've been doing, and that's fair play to Jim Goodwin and the coaching, because, like we said earlier, they've got a big Dundee derby as well coming up. So, no, I think Jim's done a great job, and he's bringing out the best in these players.
Looking at Kilmarnock, they drew 1-1 against Dundee last week, but then got absolutely hammered by Rangers during midweek, the 6-0 defeat. Derek McInnes was not happy, and rightly so. It's now, like I said, they've not won in their last 5. I mean, you look at Hibs and Hearts bottom of the league, but you kind of think they will eventually get out of this. There has to be a massive worry for Kilmarnock, though, Regan.
Yeah, no, definitely, because Derek McInnes would have expected them to be top 4 or even top 3 this season, because you didn't really know what to expect with Jimmy Teeling, and I think Derek McInnes has been talking about him going to Rangers. I don't know, Graham, subconsciously, if kind of Derek McInnes has took his eye off the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked for the last few weeks about the fact that, you know, could Philip Clement get sacked? Could it be Derek McInnes? I mean, would Rangers even want Derek McInnes after that?
No, I don't think I don't think they would, but I think also he might be a prime candidate, because who else is there out there, Graham? They've tried the foreign approach with Philippe Clement, they've tried it with Pedro Caixinha, and even to a lesser extent a big name with Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale. And they're probably the most successful coach since Walter Smith has been Giovanni Van Bronckhorst back in 2021. So, no, I think Rangers just need to go back to the drawing board.
I mean, Kilmarnock are a strange one, because at home they do tend to be quite a decent side, but away from home, some of the results are really, really poor. I mean, that defeat on Wednesday, I don't think anyone saw that coming, to get beat 6-0 by a Rangers team who've not been in great form. But I think there's a lot of players in that Kilmarnock side have not really hit the heights they did before. The likes of Danny Armstrong, for example, he's not really been at it this season. Kyle Vassell up front, defensive, maybe not quite as solid. So maybe it isn't all just about McInnes. I think the players have got to do a lot more as well.
Yeah, I think they have. They've got to take responsibility for what they're doing. And it's okay to turn it up and playing well against Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, but you also need to do it in the smaller matches as well. And you need to show some perseverance, because this time last year, Danny Armstrong was talking about going down south to whoever and that. So it's all about him trying to get his form back as well.
Prediction for this one, United against Killie?
I'll go 2-0 to Dundee United.
I'm going to go 2-1 United. I think they'll win this, but only just. The next game is St Mirren against Motherwell. Before we look at Motherwell, because you've always put on the tagline, what's happening at Motherwell? Against St Mirren, not having a poor season. They're currently sitting 7th. Last week, they had that defeat to Dundee United. Robinson's a decent manager. How do you see this one going tomorrow?
I think it'll be a difficult one, Graham. I think in terms of the game, I think it'll be interesting as well. But I think both of these teams will think. Well, I think St Mirren will fancy their chances because Motherwell are not really doing too well at the moment, and like Stephen was talking about, they're not really doing since they've had Paul McGinn and Stephen O'Donnell out as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've seen a few games in St Mirren. Robbie's obviously seen a lot more than I have, but they are a really good side, especially at home. Olasanya is capable of causing numerous problems. Mark O'Hara, Michael's mate, as we know, they can definitely cause problems tomorrow. And at home, they're a very, very strong side. They're very, very difficult to play against. They make the pitch very narrow. I actually think St Mirren, could they be in that top 6 end of the season?
I think St Mirren could. They're obviously the first team that beat Aberdeen as well, so it's going to be a difficult one for them. But I think Tony Fitzpatrick was laughed a couple of years ago when he said it, Graham. But I think St Mirren will be right up there.
Stephen Robinson, obviously, after the game last week, was not happy. I actually thought he kept his cool very well over a couple of decisions that didn't go their way last week. I know we touched on it earlier about the VAR decisions, but honestly, for a manager, it must be so frustrating when you see this kind of things going against you. The likes of the Jack Walton sending off that wasn't given, the sending off of Marcus Fraser, which has now obviously been appealed and they've won that. But as a manager, you can set your team out to do things on the pitch. You can't set your team out to deal with those kind of decisions last week that go against you.
Yeah. Stephen Robinson knew that was a sending off. He knew that things were going to go difficult. And I think in terms of him, he's done a fantastic job and he can't really control what the referee does. He'll be glad in some ways that there was a bit of justification for his outburst last week. But you want that to happen in real time as well.
Yeah, looking at Motherwell, like I said, you put on the tagline there, what's going wrong at Motherwell? last week, beaten 3-0 at home by Hibs. Wednesday, hammered 4-1 by Dundee. I wish we had Stephen on the show tonight. They've now lost their last 3. It's kind of similar to last season as well, Regan, when they went 15 games without a win. It's not quite as bad so far this season, but they really have kind of fallen off a little bit in the last few weeks.
Yeah, Motherwell are a weird one, Graham, because the fair play to them, they always keep faith in Sean Kerwell as well. So I think overall, I don't think they'll be panicking, but I think there definitely is problems there.
It is a good thing you said there, because obviously last season there was a lot of talk about could Kettlewell get sacked. I know that Stephen was behind the fact that he should have been kept on, but normally when a manager doesn't win in 15 games, you do get sacked. He kept his job. This season, again, it's been kind of up and down. They're currently sitting 6th, so it's not a disaster. But, that game on Wednesday night, I kind of watched the highlights. The goals they concede, they're so, so poor. You must be tearing your hair out if you're Stuart Kettlewell.
Yeah, I know he's got a lot of hair, Graham, so I don't know what his hair looked like in Wednesday morning, because it must have been running around Tuesday, like you said. And I think in terms of him, he'll just be looking to try and get the injured players back and see what they can do for there. But I think they need to be realistic, Graham. Hopefully Stephen's watching and he hears this, but I think the realistic aim for Motherwell every single season is to stay up.
Yeah, one of the ways they could do that, and I know that Stephen won't like me saying this, and we talked about it before, but one of the ways they could do that is to, obviously, they need to try and keep Lennon Miller, but that's going to be very difficult, because I think at some point, his stock is already really high. If come January they were to lose Lennon Miller, could that be their downfall?
Yeah, it's one of these ones that you probably need to gamble and take the money, because he's at peak value as well. So you might not get that back in a couple of years.
We've kind of talked about Lennon Miller and the Scotland squad, but we've said previously as well that the difficulty is, if you look at the Scotland team, our strongest area is midfield. Now, we've got Lewis Ferguson to come back as well. You've got David Watson at Kilmarnock. Lennon Miller will definitely be up there. But just with the quality that Scotland have got in that midfield, it's going to be very difficult for Lennon Miller to break in there.
It will be, but I'm sure that's a challenge that he's wanting to take, because Scotland have got a lot of good midfielders going, but I think he's right at the top of that list. He's brilliant. I said to you last week that you asked me about the evaluation. I think he could probably go for a 7 million or something like that. And that's great business from Motherwell, and I don't think they can turn that down, because it's okay saying, well, he can stay for one more year, but maybe it's a case of he gets loaned to Motherwell for the rest of the season from like a Celtic or a Liverpool. Maybe they say, right, well, he's not going to play for Celtic for the rest of the season, but he'll play for his next season. So if you want to take him for 6 months, then he can bed in with us in July and August. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, do you think he might do a Lewis Ferguson and go abroad? There's a lot of talk about maybe that might happen, or do you think it might be a case of he goes to England? Because I think, let's be honest, the only team in Scotland that can afford him is Celtic, but I don't think Celtic really want him just now. So where do you think he might go? Do you think he might go abroad?
I think probably the sensible option for him is abroad, but my general consensus, Graham, is he'll be a Celtic player. I genuinely think he'll be a Celtic player. I think that see the game a few weeks ago, Graham, and that Celtic were playing Motherwell, and Celtic won it 3-0, I think it was. I think that Celtic probably went into that Motherwell boardroom and said, look, how much you want for this guy? Because they don't want to miss out on that talent again. It's okay saying, right, Graham, I'm going to play the devil's advocate with you right now. I know that Celtic will probably not give him the opportunities this season, right? But I think personally, I don't know what you think, but I think personally, Rio Hatate and Engels might not be here next summer. You know? Because I think Rio Hatate might leave to go to the Premier League. And the same with Engels. See, Engels, he might be, if he's a great second half of the season, Graham, and Celtic get the 25 to 30 million that they see fit, they're going to sell him. So, I totally get what you mean in terms of Celtic have got the options there. But I do think that Rio Hatate, that is the perfect time for him to leave. And in terms of Engels, I think because of the price bracket, I don't think he'll be here for a very long time.
It's a bold shout, that one, like maybe Luke McCowan and Lennon Miller as Celtic's new midfield partnership. Watch it, watch the space. I mean, what's your prediction for St Mirren Motherwell? I think it's a really hard game to call this tomorrow, actually.
I'll go 3-1 to St Mirren.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. Sorry, Stephen, if you're watching me. Do you know, actually, just going back to Celtic, I wasn't going to say this, but I always wonder, and not just Celtic, but there's always that player that you think your club missed out on. And I've thought this about Hearts a few times, but I do wonder if, in terms of Celtic, the one that will haunt them is John McGinn.
Yeah,
given what he's done for Aston Villa in Scotland.
And I don't think I think Brendan Rodgers will be barking down that door there and saying, look, this is a prime example. We don't want to be losing out on these talents. But also, I did see John McGinn talking to another podcast, Graham, with Darryl and Alan Hutton and stuff like that. And he was saying that his ambition in the next couple of years is, before his legs kind of go, that he does want to play for Celtic.
Interesting if he comes back to Scotland again. The final game of the weekend is in Dingwall on Sunday at 12 o'clock kickoff. Ross County against Rangers. Ross County last week were beaten 5-0 by Celtic. Now they've got to play Rangers in Dingwall. But again, we touched on it earlier about Rangers beating Kilmarnock 6-0 and the fact they've got to build on that. this could be a potentially difficult game, Reagan. You know, any team that goes to Dingwall finds it difficult. Do you think Ross County can give Rangers a hard game here?
I think they can, because we've seen it last season. Don't forget, Graham, that when Rangers were up there last season, they were 2 points ahead of Celtic. So that was a game that if Rangers won, they would have won the title. You know? So I think Ross County, they've got that. Is it Ronan Hale from the Irish League?
Yeah.
He seems to be a player that's scoring a lot of goals. I think he's scored something 10 goals already for a Ross County team. So I think he'll be looking forward to this game. And I think as well, they've got. I mean, Celtic can beat anybody, but I think if Rangers beat Kilmarnock by 6 on Wednesday night, Graham, but Rangers matches away from home seem to only be by the odd goal, and I think it's a bit different to St Johnstone. See, in terms of like Rangers, I do feel like that if the game is still say that on Sunday at 2 o'clock, Graham, it's still 1-0 to Rangers with 10 minutes to go. I still think that Ross County will think, right, we can get a draw, or even we can get 3 points here, because they've got they're a bit different to St Johnstone, where they've got actual people that can score goals, and don't forget Jordan White as well.
I was going to mention that. You know, you touched on Ronan Hale, but there's also Jordan White, who is very good in the air, is capable of causing that Rangers defence a lot of problems. I mean, if you look at the Ross County side, I mean, Connor Randall as well, not a bad player in the midfield. They're going to have to be at it. I mean, how much of a psychological blow will it have been to lose that game 5-0 last week? I know it's Celtic, but to be 5-0 down at half time, it must be quite a psychological blow, that.
Graham, I was laughing when I was at the match, because I was thinking, is Ross Laidlaw just pulled up injured because Celtic scored 5 goals?
It's funny because I don't know if you heard this, but I was listening to other podcasts during the week, and this was really strange. A Celtic fan actually phoned up to say that he left at half time with Celtic 5-0 up. He left at half time because he was bored of Celtic winning, which I find quite a strange comment to make.
Yeah, I get it. It's a strange comment, but I think I don't know what people want. Graham, they want Celtic and Rangers to do well. They want Hearts to do well, and then when they do well, they say they're getting bored. Well, surely that you wanted your team to win, and they've won. So what's the problem?
Exactly. I just found it a really strange comment. I had to mention that, but yeah. I mean, in terms of Ross County, they're sitting 8th, 5 points ahead of Hearts, unfortunately. But I mean, if they could get a win on Sunday, it would be absolutely massive. And like I've said previously, I think it's Dingwall is always that case of it is a really tough place to go. And if Ross County keep it tight early on and frustrate Rangers, they will get chances.
Yeah, they will. I mean, I said Ronan Hale. Yeah, because he's a good player, and I feel like Rangers defensively are not that good either. Graham, you look at Robin Proper. Look at the game against Dundee United, and even the game last week against St Johnstone. He's always like as if he's towing a caravan. As if he's on kind of shaky ice, and I think that's great news if you're Ross County, because he's not a ball playing centre half. He's more of a kind of but the ball in the air, and I don't know. I know Rangers have just hired the Dutch CEO, but I don't know what he's seen when he's brought him in.
For Rangers, again, assuming that Celtic win tomorrow, Celtic go 14 points clear. I don't really think anyone thinks that Celtic won't win the league. But in terms of Rangers, I mean, they've got big games to come, like we mentioned earlier on. Tomorrow's a big game, because right now their fight probably has to try and be second and Aberdeen. But like I said, it's going to be a tough game for them.
Yeah, I think it will be, and I think that's why Aberdeen will be trying to win tomorrow even more, because they'll see Ross County as a potential balance game for Rangers. And I think in terms of Rangers, they've not got good memories at Ross County as well. So that might play into the minds of the players as well, the fact that they've not won there for a very long time. I think in terms of Rangers, I think it's also important in these matches, Graham, because uh, Ross County will be doing the whole block, or as Michael calls it, parking 10 buses. It's important that they score an early goal.
I mentioned James Tavernier earlier. Obviously got a goal on Wednesday. He's back in the side now. We've mentioned it previously, and I've said it to Andy, the Rangers fan that comes on as well, that Tavernier gets a lot of stick. I do understand at times because there's the captain, but does Wednesday night, the fact that he scored, had a decent performance, does that take a little bit of pressure off him now?
I think it does because he's not really done well this season. He's only scored I think it's 2 goals for a fullback this season, and like I know me and you joke and say that he's not scored a lot of goals because Rangers have not had a lot of penalties, which is probably true. But I mean, in terms of him, he's got very high standards. He's scored so many goals for a fullback, as people keep telling us on the telly. So I think in terms of him, it's just good for him to get that sense of scoring back again.
Well, talking about sense of scoring, how big will it be for Rangers that Igamani's found the net again? Because I thought in the last European game against Bruges, he looked very good. Scored again on Wednesday. How big is it for him and for Rangers that he's actually coming in and he started to score goals now?
I think it's a big one, Graham, because it's a bit like Shankland. See, once he scores, he'll be absolutely fine. In the same way, Igamani, I've watched him a few times. He looked a bit rusty, but now that he's got that scoring touch, it seems that anything he touches is going to be a goal. But it's also good for Rangers that Dessers is scoring, Daniel's getting a chance again. So Rangers fans are starting to feel better. I know there was a wee argument on the radio the other night with a Rangers supporter. I was talking to Hugh, and she was saying, "Well, I'm not devastated because Celtic have won," and he said, "Yeah, yes, you are." And she was arguing back saying, "But I think in terms of Rangers, it's important that they just focus on themselves." And I think Igamani, it's a good thing he's scoring because they've got 2 big matches up next and Spurs and also Celtic as well.
We might actually touch on Spurs in a second because it's obviously the Celtic connection. But thoughts on Ross County Rangers prediction for that one?
I'll go Ross County 2, Rangers 3.
Ooh, I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers. I think it'll be very tight. Let's move into the Championship. Games tomorrow. Dunfermline against Hamilton. Falkirk against Wraith. Our dress rehearsal for the Cup. Morton against Livingston. Partick against Ayr. And Queen's Park against Airdrie. Currently, Falkirk sitting 6 points ahead of Livingston. I mean, obviously, I think probably the game of the day tomorrow is that Falkirk v Wraith game. I mean, Reagan, Falkirk have had a fantastic season. They really are on John McGlynn. Some of the football they play is fantastic. And I think right now, people have already said that they are the favourites for the league. And I can't agree with that. They really do deserve to come up.
Sorry, Graham, is that a point or a question? No, I'm only joking because two years ago when we were doing a different show, that was one of the things we were talking about, remember?
I remember that.
It just shows you how quickly football can change because Falkirk under John McGlynn have been absolutely brilliant. So I think Falkirk will go up this season. I think they'll be very difficult to stop, even this early on in the season.
Is there any other surprises for you in the Championship? Because I think I've said previously, my biggest surprise is how poor Airdrie have done. They're currently sitting bottom on 5 points. They play Queen's Park tomorrow. Queen's Park are actually sitting 5th on 22 points, only a point off top 4. I mean, Airdrie have been such a disappointment this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Reese. I did actually. Yes. I said to you about 2 or 3 months ago that I would take him as a Scotland manager before the season started. So, thank God he's not the Scotland manager because he's not doing too well right now. But that's why everybody's still listening to me here. But I mean, I think in terms of Airdrie, I mean, it just shows you how quickly football can change and how quickly life can change, because he was the kind of flavour of the month. It's a bit like Ange Postecoglou, like you said. Everybody loved Ange Postecoglou last year, and now the English media and English news are kind of baiting for his blood.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the rest of the games tomorrow, any other games stand out for you tomorrow?
No in particular, Graham, but I'm looking forward to seeing Queen's Park as well, because I always keep a wee eye on Queen's Park as well, because of the kind of oldest club in Scottish football. So, and they've got Davidson as the manager. So, no, I just hope that they can possibly do something.
I mean, how good would it be to see Queen's Park in the playoff, and how amazing would it be if Queen's Park did manage to come up?
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. Because I remember a couple of years ago when they had Leanne Dempster. I don't know if she's still there, but I don't think she is anymore, is she?
I don't think she is, no.
And then they had the Dutch guy as the director of football for Ajax. I don't know how they managed to get that. That still needs to be figured out. But I mean, yeah, fair play to Queen's Park, because they've got ambitions. They're a top club. They've made themselves full time now. So I think overall, I think they're a club that needs to be progression in Scottish football.
So those are the games happening this week. If you're going to a game, enjoy it. I don't think the weather's going to be particularly great, but we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. Now, I know it's a Scottish football show, but Ange Postecoglou was a manager in Scotland, so we have to touch on that, and also the fact Regan's a Spurs fan. What's happening, mate? Honestly, I didn't watch the game last night, but I saw the reaction of some of the Spurs fans. Postecoglou came over to applaud them, and he was booed and jeered. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Postecoglou was getting hailed by Spurs fans. What's happening? What's going wrong?
Graham, Poster, no clue. Yeah, it's not going well. He's too stubborn, Graham. I said it to you on the show. Even when he was Celtic manager, he's far too stubborn. You know, he just says it's who we are, mate. But I mean, in terms of what Ange does, I mean, the football he plays is brilliant, but everybody seems to adapt against him. And obviously they're playing Chelsea this weekend. I think he'll be lucky to stay in his job for Christmas, Graham. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult watch. Obviously next week we've got the Carabao Cup as well, and Man United. Spurs fans are craving some silverware, so if he can beat Man United and get himself in the semi-final, then that would be great. But it would just be Spurs luck if they drew Anfield in the semi.
I mean, do you remember, was it not Chelsea that they had 2 men sent off and played that high line? And full question, why did you do that? And he goes, well, I'm not going to change my philosophy. It was like, you could have lost that game about 5 or 6.
I know. And I think that's what's ultimately is going to cost him his job, because at the end of the day, you're playing against the best players in the world. No disrespect to Ross County or Dundee United, Graham, but you can take more time in the ball. You can take more touches. But if he's going to Anfield and he's saying that this is who we are, mate, then Slot and Guardiola will just play a different tactic and do well to beat them. And see last night, it's okay. Like I think Spurs had 66% possession. It's okay in possession, but they only had 4 shots at goal through the full 90 minutes. And I'm going to try and be not as negative towards that, because I think Spurs have got something like 8 players out on the sidelines, and I think that's part of the reason as well. Because you look at Van de Ven, Romero, Davis got injured last night, and he says he's going to be out for some like 6 to 8 weeks now. So I think they've only got one fit centre back. I think there needs to be kind of Spurs fans need to look through the magnifying glass that things will get better, but I just don't know if Ange Postecoglou is the man, because he's too stubborn with his tactics, Graham.
Liverpool currently top, 7 points clear. Merseyside derby tomorrow, the last Merseyside derby at Goodison before Everton.
I was just going to ask you about that, because I'm quite sad about it. I don't know about you, but I like all these all these the old stadiums.
I was in Liverpool towards the end of last season with my laddie going to see Liverpool Legends game, and we actually passed the new site of the new Everton ground and saw it getting built up. It looks very impressive. It does look a really good stadium. But yeah, I do agree. I kind of like these old-fashioned stadiums, but I think tomorrow's going to be a massive, massive game. It's a derby, the last one at Goodison. They're going to be up for this. But Liverpool win 10 points clear, so it's going to be interesting.
You got prediction, Graham? Prediction for that tomorrow?
2-1 Liverpool.
I don't know. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, Graham, but I'm a football romantic, and I've been listening all day on the radio, and this person phoned up and he says, "I just want us to win, so I can say to the grandkids in 20 years that we won our last Merseyside match and the home." You know, I just think it. Say that again, Graham.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's kind of where I was going with that as well. I just think it's that kind of nostalgia thing. I wouldn't be surprised, but the way that Mo Salah's playing just now, I would hope he'll get a few goals tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think you will, and I think it's just great to see more Scotland players doing well, because Andy Robertson, Graham, he's been brilliant.
He has indeed. Well, we are at the 2 hours. Thank you to Alistair, and thank you, as always, to Reagan for joining me tonight. I was a little bit late because I was working, but we're back on Sunday, usual time at 3 till 5. So if you're going to a game this weekend, like I said, do enjoy it and take it easy, because, like I said, the weather is not looking great. But thank you, Reagan. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for the likes and the follows. It's much appreciated. And we'll see you on Friday, folks. Enjoy your football. Catch you later.